And sure enough, I started doing those things. And again, not all of them worked for me, but a couple of them did. And my business grew by, I think it was like 20, 30% or something like that year. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. If you don't think your business can be profitable and you can have freedom with your time, then that's just not going to happen for you. That's the reality. Because in our brain, if we say it is possible, right, but I am not currently there, then your brain naturally goes, okay, so what do I need to do to get there? But if you're like, nope, not possible, then what do? You do nothing because you don't believe it's possible. Hey, welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit location owner for almost 20 years. And now we help restaurant owners increase their sales, increase their bottom line profit, and help them have more freedom with their time. So what we're going to be talking about today is limiting beliefs. And I know this sounds like a great topic, like everyone wants to do it, but and in fact, I'm sure most of you are going like, why do I want to talk about limiting beliefs? But here's the thing. Your business will only improve up to the level of your skill set or your beliefs. So let me give you an example of this. I did a post the other day in our Facebook group, and I basically said, is it possible for restaurant owners to have a great business and have a great life and have great profitability at the same time? And what was really interesting is about 70% of people said that that was false. It's not possible to do that. And what's interesting is that, just walk through this with me for a second. What is the definition of impossible? Impossible is something that just cannot be done. Like as in it's never happened and is believed to be physically impossible. So that means no one has ever done it and there's a belief that no one can do it. Right? That's what impossible means. But there were 30% of the people that commented on this. And those 30% said, yeah, it's possible. That's what I'm doing right now. You know, my business is doing great. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And what's so interesting about it is that by definition, if someone is doing that and that is true, then it is not impossible. It is possible. So then, therefore, if someone believes that it is not possible, then it is the belief that holds them back and not the actual physical limitations, right? Because it's not physically impossible. In reality, it is not impossible, but for them, they feel it's impossible. So therefore, it's impossible for them. And that's the point I want to get across. So this may or may not be making sense to you, but let me put it this way. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. If you don't think your business can be profitable and you can have freedom with your time, then that's just not going to happen for you. That's the reality. Because in our brain, if we say it is possible, right, but I am not currently there, then your brain naturally goes, okay, so what do I need to do to get there? But if you're like, nope, not possible, then what do? You do nothing because you don't believe it's possible. You stay where you're at, right? So which one of those is going to serve your business better? I talk to restaurant owners all the time, and a question that I asked them was like, well, how is that belief serving you? Oh, like there's no one good to hire out there. Oh, okay. And how is that belief serving you? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, because you believe that there's no one out there to hire, like, how is that helping your business? They're like, oh, I guess it's not. Because if the belief is that there's no one to hire, then you just continue to accept whoever comes in because you don't believe there's anyone better. But if you believe that there are better people, you would go, okay, well, how come I'm not getting more of them, right? Or how can I identify the good ones instead of the bad? We would then start to make changes that would help us get there, right? So that is the difference in our limiting beliefs, right? If you believe that you can't be in better shape, then you will not take the steps to be in better shape. Yeah, that's how it works. And sometimes, and here's the thing that I do. What I do is I always like to put myself in places where my beliefs get broken, because I'll always look for places where what someone else believes might be different from what I believe. And so then I can evaluate whether my belief is wrong or is their belief wrong. Because there's two beliefs. Which one is actually more true? Or how do they see the world in a different way? So I'll give you an example. Back when I just had one location, I would go to these franchise conferences, and I would go, and then there would be these guys that were doing like double the revenue that I was. And I was like, first year, I was like, they must be doing something. It must just be their location. They just must have this great location and this other thing and then whatever. Like, screw those guys. They're just lucky. Like, they've been here less time than I have. They've been grinding it out less than I've been grinding here for like 5 years, and I still haven't gotten there. They're just lucky. It's nothing they did, right? And so that's what I thought. And so guess what happened to my business that year? I didn't really change, right? My business pretty much stayed the same. I went back the next year and I actually bought them a beer, and I'm like, hey man, so what are you doing that's different from what I'm doing? And they were like, yeah, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. And I was like, well, shit, I'm doing none of that. And sure enough, I started doing those things. And again, not all of them worked for me, but a couple of them did. And my business grew by, I think it was like 20, 30% or something like that year, right? And it wasn't that I couldn't have done those things the year before. It's just I didn't believe that there was anything that could be done that would make it better. I believe that there was no value to be learned, right? And so again, it's my belief that cost me 20 to 30%. So let me phrase it to you in a different way. Maybe your goal in your business, it's funny actually when I talk about goals with people, maybe your goal in the business is to make, let's just say $100,000 a year of profit. Let's just say that. I'm sure a lot of you are like, oh my God, like that would be a dream, or there's no way that could ever happen. So funny. I get to people on calls and they're like, yeah, like I wish we could just break even. Like that would make life so better. I'm like, really? Like you dreamed of breaking even? Like that's a shitty goal. Like we need to pick a better goal than that. Because your goal in coming here to work with us is not going to be to break even. It's going to make money. Otherwise, why are we doing this? So anyway, it's funny. I have that conversation all the time. It sounds like a survival goal. Just because people have been beaten down for so long, they just don't think anything better is possible. So that's the thing that happens. Anyway, and I was probably there. Like that's probably why I had these limiting beliefs. But the point is, if you want to make $100,000 a year, then again, I use that. I mean, your number's gonna be different. Like maybe some of you, like my goal is to make $1 million a year in profit, right? So let's just $100,000 is just a number. Change that to whatever goal you have. But the point is, so right now, let's just say you're making $50,000 instead of $100,000. So it's actually costing you $50,000 a year to not know how to make $100,000 a year. So it's costing you, right? So if you could find that knowledge on how to make $100,000, it would be worth $50,000 because that's the difference between where you are and where you want to go. And it would actually be that times the infinity of the years that you will have this business. So significantly more. So realistically, learning that knowledge could actually be worth $250,000, $300,000 or more. Right? We just don't think about it like that. We just think like, oh, whatever, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, or it's impossible to do that. Anytime you say that it's impossible or you start making excuses for why other people are doing better than you, slap yourself in the face, because that's not serving you and your business. And I'll lay that out. And if you were here in an in-person conversation, I would slap you in the face, because someone slapping me in the face, not literally, but someone slapping me in the face verbally is part of what got me to change, because I'm a stubborn dude. Right? I've been in this industry for a long time. Like you can't be in it 20 years just about without being stubborn. You can't have your own business for that long without being stubborn sometimes. So the point is, sometimes the stubbornness becomes a weakness. As much as it can be a strength, sometimes it becomes a weakness at a certain point in your business when it comes to the beliefs around what the potential in future is. So I eventually learned through going to these conferences that there was other people that were doing other things that I wasn't doing, and I needed to learn how to do them. And so even continually today in my business, I go to conferences and I pay the money to go to places where people are, where I am a small fish and they are the big fish, because I want to see what are they doing? How do they view the world differently than what I do, right? I want to learn and I want to be open to it. And as soon as I get to a place where I notice in the room, like I'm the biggest person in the room, I get out of the room. I don't care about being the biggest person in the room. I want to grow and I want to learn. So I go find a different room to be in, right? Same thing with your friends. If you're the richest of your friends, find new friends. I know it's weird to say, but if you want to grow, like you need to put yourself in different circles. So that's the kind of thing that I will say. Now, here's another one. If most of the other restaurant owners that you know are all in the same boat and struggling the same way you are, or are worse off than you are, right? So funny. Someone came on one of my calls the other day and they were just like, yeah, I talked to a bunch of the restaurant owners and we all say that this and this and this and this happens and this and this. I'm like, oh, it sounds like a pity party. And they're like, well, no, we're just talking about all of our problems. I'm like, yeah, but how many solutions did you find for them? He's like, oh, no, we just vented and drank some beer. I'm like, yeah, pity party, right? So is the group that you want to surround yourself with a group that actually has found solutions or is working on solutions and is doing better than you and might have already solved the things that you're struggling with? Or do you want to be in the people who are just there bitching and complaining about their situation, right? Which one do you want to be in? And if you don't know how to get in that bigger circle, then you need to put effort into finding how to do that, right? Because they're there. There are people that are there. Sometimes they cost money to get into, but that's the whole point. Restaurant owners, before you open more locations, stop. I've seen way too many owners go from 1 to 2 to 3 to bankruptcy. I know because I was once there myself. The difference in owning multiple locations is how you have to change, and if you don't make the shift, it'll take years to recover. I took my 3 biggest lessons and put them in a free ebook called the Multi-Unit Playbook so you don't have to go through the same struggles that I did. Go to the link in the description below and get your free copy today. So that's kind of what I want to talk about is the mindset and limiting beliefs, because I have so many people that are like, man, like I can't get my labor below 35%. I can't get my food below 40%. And I'm like, you can't, like as in physically impossible? Yeah, impossible, because we make everything from scratch. And then, of course, the next call, I go to a client who has their food and labor costs, so their prime cost, is like 53%, and they make everything from scratch. And so I'm like, the difference in between the two is that one believes it's possible and has then taken the steps to achieve it, and the other one thinks it's not impossible and therefore stays the same. That's the difference, is a belief. And so I just want you to examine your own beliefs. How are you saying that in your life? Like there was a point where I was extremely overweight. I am currently overweight, I will say that. But there was a point where I was extremely overweight, kind of looked like I had ate my current version of myself. But anyway, I could tell you all the reasons or excuses for all of that. The point is, at this stage of my life, I saw people going with gym bags or people that were fit. I'd be like, well, they're not building a business like I am. Well, I'm working on my business. I'm working on my future. It's easy to be fit like that. Yeah, you just have to have more time and stuff like that. Personal trainers, well, that's your job to be fit. And there's all these excuses that I would say that would make me feel better about my current reality. The reality was I didn't eat right and I didn't exercise, right? That's the reality. But the more I gave excuses and said, well, that doesn't matter because of this, did it change how I felt when I looked in the mirror? Well, fuck no. I still felt the same when I looked in the mirror, right? But I made myself feel better because I told myself these stories, right? What would have been better is if I had slapped myself in the face and at that point said, it's time to start eating better. You know those like cookies you're eating? You know those like 10 Diet Cokes you're drinking every day? How about we change that? You know when you stop for McDonald's after a shift because you're too tired to cook because you've been cooking for everybody else all day? How about we don't do that? How about we do something different? Let's just have a chicken breast. You know what I mean? Like there's things that you can do, but the point is I kept telling myself these stories. And so guess what? I was overweight until the time when I stopped telling myself those stories and started doing things differently. So in your business, what are you doing right now that you are currently telling yourself a story about? That is not true, but it's making you feel better in the moment, but it's probably not true, right? If you feel like you need to justify, here's the thing, and maybe this is just true for me, I can only speak for myself, but when I tell a story to myself because of a situation, it probably means I'm trying to reinforce a belief, right? I'll give you a perfect example. I saw, who was it? Who's that actor that's that was in Twister and was like with that in that movie about or had Sydney Sweeney, whatever the dude. He's like in everything now. Anyways, he's a good looking dude, and like obviously he's in shape. He's got a new movie out. I think it's The Running Man. Anyway, I can't. Glenn Powell. He's in Top Gun. Yeah, okay, that's his name, right? I'm looking at this dude. This dude's in shape, right? And I'm like, well, that's his job to be in shape. Like he has to for his job. And I say that to make myself feel better about whether I am in the same shape that he is. So what is that doing? Reinforcing a belief that it's okay for me to be where I am, which is unhappy with the way that I look, right? So if you feel compelled to tell yourself a story about why someone else can do something and you can't, well, maybe that's a conversation you need to have with yourself about why you feel the need to reinforce that belief, right? So real talk about that. It's literally happened. This dude's ripped, right? And I just came back from like 2 weeks on vacation, and like I hadn't been in my routine. I hadn't been in the gym. And so I was definitely feeling not so great. And so I felt compelled to tell myself a story. And then since then, I'm like, screw that. I'm going back to like my chicken breast and carrots for lunch and like my egg whites in the morning and, back to my personal trainer routine and stuff like that. And now I feel better about myself. I feel I'm making progress. So I don't feel compelled to tell myself that story because I know I'm working on all the things, right? But I did prior to that. So I thought that would be an interesting conversation for us to have, because very few people are going to tell you that it's your beliefs that are wrong. You don't have a circle, usually, that will tell you the truth. They will be there to console you. They will be there to try and make you feel better. Very few people will be there and tell you the hard truth that you need to hear. And that's just something that, I'll give you an example of this. Sometimes we need to actually seek out the hard feedback. And I asked my managers a while ago, this was, I want to say 7 years ago, I asked them for feedback on like what it is that I could do better, or if there's any patterns that I am contributing to that were negative. And one of my managers wrote back, they're like, if I actually tell you this, am I going to get fired? I'm like, no, I want to hear it. And she leveled me with some feedback. And anyway, it was feedback I needed to hear. And since then, I changed the way in which I acted. But I wasn't aware consciously of that until I asked the hard questions. There's very few people that will tell you that. I will say my mother will tell me very difficult feedback that she has in the past. But there's very few people in my life that will, if I want someone's honest opinion, whether I'm going to agree with it or not or whatever, but if I want someone's unvarnished opinion, there's a few people in my life that I can go to. Most people will not tell you that because it's not in their best interest to do that. You know what I mean? But you want someone that will look at your best interests at heart and tell you the things that you don't want to hear. And that's just the reality of it. So our beliefs can just make our business smaller, because we can play smaller than what we should be and what we should do. So in this post that I did, that's what I saw. Some people are saying, well, before COVID, yes, but after COVID, no, like there's no way you can have a great restaurant and great profitability and have a life. And again, that's a belief because there's people that are doing it. So we just got to look at our beliefs. How true is that? There's a couple questions we can ask. How true is that? Why do I believe that? How is that belief serving me? What do I gain from believing this? Where does this story come from? Why do I believe this? These are all questions we can ask. And so I would encourage you that if you don't have someone who can coach you through a conversation like this, find one. Find a friend that can just walk you through these questions and just keep asking the questions until you get to a different answer, until you uncover what it is that's holding you back. And I think not enough people do that because it takes time. We find it to be difficult. It is easier just to continue doing the same thing, but also it protects us because we feel better. If we can blame the rest of the world and say the restaurant industry sucks and you can never be successful, well, guess what? That's going to make you feel better for having a shitty restaurant, right? For not making money and working 80 hours a week. It's going to make you feel better in the moment. Is that going to make you feel better later? Because, you're still going to be doing that a year from now? No. It's going to make you feel better for the moment, though. And a lot of people will choose short-term comfort over short-term discomfort, but long-term gain, right? It is easier to stay the same than to change. And people will only change when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. And for most restaurant owners that I speak to, they are used to doing things and they have been kind of beaten down a little bit. They just got used to doing things the way they are. And it just is what it is. I just have to work 80 hours a week. I'm just not going to make that much money from this business. This is just my life now. I'm just a prisoner to my restaurant. And it's just easier to do that than to actually change or to really admit how bad their situation really is, right? But that's the kind of conversation that, if you have it, will precipitate change and help change your business in the future. Because it is possible to have a great restaurant, to have a great life, to have a great income from it. That's all possible. The only difference is whether you believe it is or not. This episode is brought to you by Ownership Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.